Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 5 signs that you are already on what people call the hero's journey. This is a reference to the book by the author Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He describes this hero's journey, this path that all human beings have the possibility of embarking on. It's a path of transformation. It's a path of coming into one's potential. It's a path of purpose. It's a path of aligning yourself with your soul, your mission, and becoming in harmony with the whole. Yet, these are all great things, right? These are all things that sound like, yeah, I could go for that. But what's happening right now on the planet is a lot of people are finding themselves, not necessarily by conscious choice, on this path. And even though the path leads to this phenomenal outcome, a life of freedom, abundance, authentic expression, just authenticity, where you become a ray of hope for all that know you. The path itself, the transition, it's freaking wild. It is a path of transformation. And a lot of you guys, folks watching this, who are attracted to YouTube channels like mine, are already on this path. And you might not know it. So this video is to reaffirm what I would suspect your intuition's already been telling you. And this, I believe, will give you a new outlook and help you kind of enjoy the ride. And at the very least, get excited about where you're heading. Number 1, I wrote down major breakdown. Major breakdown. When your soul, we'll say, is activated, summoned to this hero's journey, oftentimes what happens in kind of a rapid, sometimes overwhelming and chaotic fashion is all the different parts of your life start to crumble. And it can happen all at once. Your career, relationship, living situation, identity, sense of self, beliefs, hobbies, your diet. Everything just goes through a lot of changes all at once. And this is what people call the dark night of the soul. A good example that comes to mind is a buddy of mine named Matt. My friend Matt was a guy who kind of like did what he was told as he grew up. He got really good grades. He went to college. He became a lawyer. He eventually opened a restaurant. He kind of followed the footsteps that his parents, hoped for him. And he did everything right. He's a great guy. And then all of a sudden he went and he met this guru, this healer guy named Mas. And Mas did something called Shaktipat. Shaktipat is where a guru, we'll say, is able to awaken someone's kundalini energy with just a touch, just an intention. And it's a very rare phenomenon, and this is not how everyone's journey goes, but it happened to Matt. He's this lawyer living his life, kind of depressed, kind of addicted to drugs, though doing everything right on paper according to the rules of society and his parents and his teachers. And Mas comes along, comes into his life, and boop, psh, sends my buddy Matt into like a 3-hour kundalini awakening convulsion, we'll say. And he experienced like divine ecstasy, divine bliss, truth, light, God. And he thought, wow, that was something else. And then what happened shortly after that is Matt was fired from his job. His restaurant closed down. He was kicked out of his apartment. He found himself broke, hopeless, just like, what happened? And it happened so quick, and he finally went back and he found Mas, and he said, Mas, what's the deal? You created this divine miracle that blew my mind and opened my heart, and now my life is in ruin. And Mas said sort of casually, yeah, it's because your whole life was not built on a foundation of authenticity. Your whole life was merely a product of the person you were led to believe you are. It's a product of your conditioning, a product of your shadow, and therefore destined to crumble. And Matt understood. He didn't make him feel any better. But anyway, this is something that can happen. You have this glimpse of the divine, or maybe you just start finding your life falling apart, but it's falling apart so that you can rebuild it consciously from a place of truth, from a place of authenticity. And when you start to do this, not only will it be sustained, but it will be something that truly satisfies you. Matt wasn't happy. Yeah, on paper he should have been happy, but he wasn't. He was using drugs to cope with his depression and anxiety. And now, a few years later, he's a buddy of mine, and he's like a women's empowerment coach. He's living here in Austin, Texas. He just bought a home like a month ago. He's got a beautiful girlfriend, a soulmate, and he is happy as a clam, living a life of freedom and authenticity. Number 2, massive personal transformation. All the stuff going on the outside is enough to keep most people awake at night. But what will really drive you bananas temporarily, it's the personal transformation. I remember shortly after my awakening, I went through this thing where my diet changed. I went like from eating like the way a typical meathead, we'll say, would eat, like a workout guy, a lot of protein, a lot of meat, to being a straight up raw vegan. And that was interesting for me. All of the different music and like television shows, like I love like The Sopranos and kind of like darker TV series, all of that, all of a sudden it didn't resonate. It was too dark, I couldn't handle it. I also started to wonder, like, who am I? At that time, and for most of my life, I was a personal fitness trainer. And beyond that, even in high school, I was known as the fitness guy. All my friends would ask me fitness questions. I used to have like a big group of my friends in my basement, in my parents' basement, and I would like train them. And that was like what I did, and that was like who I was. I was Victor, this fitness person. All of a sudden, I didn't know who I was. All of the things I thought were inherently me, I started to see from a completely different light and realize that, nope, that's not me. Nope, that's not me either. And it was this falling away of who I thought I was. But nothing was coming to replace it. It wasn't like, oh, you're not a trainer, you're a this. It was exchanging certainty. It was exchanging this comfortable relationship with this false identity I had for nothingness, for the unknown. And that was truly earth-shattering. I didn't know who I was. All I knew was who I was not. Number 3, you're hearing the call. As your life breaks down, as your identity and your belief structures also break down, there is something that does begin to emerge from a very, very deep place within yourself, from like the center of your being. It's, the way I would describe it, it's like a knowing. Sort of a remembrance, but not so clear. It's like a sensing, a knowing that I am here for more. I came here to this life for a reason. There's a purpose for my existence. And as that starts to emerge, there's also a strong itch to find it, a strong desire to clarify it, to discover it, to live it, to share it. And as this goes on, there might be a lot of other things that happen. You might start to realize you're a lot more psychic than you thought. You're a lot more tapped in to not only inner guidance, but also some type of source of greater wisdom. You start to unlock parts of your DNA, parts of your biology, parts of your nervous system. And you just start to realize that you are more than you thought you were. Even though you don't know what you are, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what it's gonna look like, you're discovering there's a potential you've been sitting on completely oblivious to, that you're now starting to kind of like get little faint whiffs of. And there's this calling. And this calling usually is not to some direct clarity, it's a calling out of something. It's a calling out of something that's weighing you down, that's suppressing your potential, a job, a career, a person, a circumstance, a belief, some way you're spending your time, you'll start to realize and sense this has got to go. For this thing within myself to gain any momentum and traction and clarity, I can't have this. You start to become very energetically sensitive to all the different elements of your life that no longer, and maybe never have ever resonated. And you feel called out of something into you don't know, into the unknown, into deeper levels of trust and faith and hope that it all works out. But the calling is something I've learned you can't avoid. You can't shake it. It's going to drive you crazy. It's going to keep you up at night until you finally listen to it and follow it. Number 4, as you may have learned, sometimes in life it benefits us to go backwards before we go forwards. So you might find yourself revisiting your past in some form. Practically speaking, a lot of times what tends to happen is the seeker will find themselves bound to a circumstance where they are, there's like you can't escape from your past. Meaning like for what happened with a buddy of mine, is he went through a spiritual awakening, and then he came to one of my retreats in Sedona, and then he said, you know what? Thanks, buddy. I like it a lot better in Sedona. I'm going to live here. So he moved there with his soulmate girlfriend, and all was well, and then all of a sudden, he felt this calling to go back home. He didn't want to go back home, but he kind of had that knowing he needs to. But anyway, reluctantly, he finally found himself back at home. And in the couple years' time he was living in Sedona, he blossomed. He really just blossomed and became almost a different person. But when he went back home, he found himself smack dab in the middle of all of his old situations that do what? They reinforce the old self. The parents, the way parents view him, the friends, the environment, all was supporting this old self. And he would ask, why am I in this situation? Why have I relapsed? Why have I come backwards? And I find that this happens to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It happened to me exactly, very similar to what happened to my friend. And what I've discovered is that sometimes we have to go backwards around our old environment that we know we've outgrown, but is doing a brilliant job of reflecting lessons within ourselves we have yet to learn. Things, wounds we need to heal, aspects of our upbringing maybe that we've yet to come to terms with. And being immersed in that bubble, it's just a very accelerated way to go through this. Now, some of you, it's not possible. Maybe your parents are deceased and maybe you have moved across the world and you're like, I don't relate, bro. But you'll have this in your own way. You'll have this like unavoidable confrontation or not confrontation, but this unavoidable surfacing of big elements of your past that you need to, it's like you need to forgive. You need to move on from, you need to look at. A lot of us, we grew up and suppressed so much. There might be an emotional catharsis, but there's this like metamorphosis we have to go through. And temporarily it feels like we're in this pressure cooker, just being pinged and triggered by our past left and right, and it can be chaotic. But it leads to a true transcendence of that former self so that your purpose can emerge fully. Number 5, you are transforming. Even if currently your life situation looks a lot worse than it did when you were normal, prior to the hero's journey, regardless of what's going on or how imbalanced you might feel. I know I consider myself a relatively balanced and happy guy, and all of a sudden this spiritual awakening took root in me, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I don't really manage my emotions all that well anymore. I feel very imbalanced, very hypersensitive. I feel like I'm always purging some dark, crazy shit from my nervous system, and there's always chaos going on in my life. And if that's relatable to you, what I would say to that is what I want to highlight here is you are transforming because of all this stuff. Parallel to all this stuff. You can look at yourself in the eyes in the mirror and see that you're not the same person. You've already changed. You've already grown. You're already more clear. You're already more awake. You're more present, more conscious, more authentic. And on some strange level, internally at least, more at peace. All these different unfoldments, all these different challenges that we have to encounter along this path are giving us exactly what we need to learn and grow and blossom and expand into our potential in this lifetime, not for the next lifetime, but for this lifetime. This lifetime, you came to do something. You came to share something. You came to express something. You came to become something. And if you relate with any of this in this video, you're well on your way, my friend. There's a gift I have for you, my friend, something I made for all of my subscribers. It's a guided meditation that can help you tap into your higher self and remember your power and potential. It's free. You can check it out down below. I made it just as a gift. It's something I designed for people, in particular, going through this type of transformation. Anytime you feel out of sorts or like you just don't feel like yourself or you need to reconnect, just pop this on, listen to it. Thousands of people have gone through it, and it'll put you in your flow. It'll put you in touch with your truth and your power. And it's completely free. I just made it one day. Check it out down below. Hope you enjoy it, my friend. Have an amazing day. Peace.